Pat, look who's in the studio now.
I see. Hello, Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew
Hello.
Reinhardt is here. It is time for, one of our favorite features of all time. It is Becoming Gift with Andrew Reinhardt from the Diocese of Toledo. And Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Great.
Pat and Ron.
Well, I can't speak for Pat, but I'm doing fine. Pat, you look like you're doing fine today.
I'm hanging in there. I still got this cold that I'm fighting, but we're doing okay.
Excellent. Well, we are on our final lever. We've been going through this series talking about sort of the big levers, the big areas to focus on for health and holiness. We've gone through connection, nourishment, movement, and now we're landing the plane with labor. So each lever, you can pull it or you can push it. So when you pull it, you're taking a rest. You're sort of throttling it. You're making it slow down. And so one of the things when we're looking at our work, our labor, the place where we find meaning and purpose, we need to slow down sometimes to manage our stress level. One of the most challenging scriptures is from Matthew chapter 6. At the end of this chapter, Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Sufficient for a day is its own evil." Do not worry about tomorrow. Jesus is saying this as a command. He's saying it as a command, not as a suggestion, not as an idea, but a command. Do not worry about tomorrow. But note in this scripture, Jesus doesn't say don't worry at all ever. Right? He says sufficient for today is its own evil. Meaning you actually do have to be worried about some things. And I think this is a great insight because the goal isn't to have zero stress. Because if you had zero stress, you would die. Stress, the kind of physiological thing under stress is just the acceleration of our body, the stimulation of our body. And of course, everyone has a kind of personal tolerance for stress. So a big part of stress management is knowing yourself, self-knowledge. Of course, some people love stress. They want to jump out of airplanes and go on roller coasters and, do all kinds of crazy stuff to get that hit, to get that urge. And some people don't like it at all. Even having to meet a new person sends some people, all the way down a spiral where they're overwhelmed. I think one of the interesting ways to frame up an understanding of stress is that our ancestors were food for predators. So the human body is used to needing to save itself, needing to protect itself. We've gotten to the top of the food chain, or maybe even taken ourselves off the food chain, so we don't have the same fear or the same challenges that our ancestors do, but we still have their same biology, their same physiology. So oftentimes we have a system that's designed for sort of very acute, quick, dangerous things, and we end up putting ourselves in very sort of sticky, chronic, long-lasting, stressful situations. So you have a stressful email, and the way your body reacts is if there's a tiger prowling after you.
Oh, yeah.
I call it the tiger in your inbox. Right? So you have this sort of very seemingly small challenge on the surface, a few words lit up on a screen, but that has a deep, significant meaning, something scary about it. Maybe a potential conflict, maybe there's some difficult task you need to do, maybe you're being challenged, maybe you have to have a difficult conversation. So our body reacts as if we're actually in danger, as if our life is threatened, even though, we simply have to write some more words on that screen and send it back.
Right.
There's a kind of a reciprocal loop between our thoughts and our physiological state. There's an adage that story actually follows state, meaning oftentimes the story we tell ourselves in our head is our brain trying to make sense of the feelings in our body. And we often think it's the other way around, right? That I kind of have this immediate understanding of the situation and my body's reacting to it. So I like to use the example of being in traffic. You're in traffic and those people are, of course, passing you on the left, but the lane's ending. And they keep passing and passing and passing and slowing everyone down who's in the lane that isn't going away, right? So you start telling yourselves stories about those people. Well, the reality is you probably started to feel frustrated, started to feel stressed, started to feel, the fact that you were slowing down or having to hit your brake or whatever. And then your brain starts to try to make sense of why that's happening. So the story actually follows the physiological state. So this is a great gift actually in our human nature, because that means if we can change our state in our body, we can change the story in our head. Meaning I can lead my thoughts. by affecting my physiology. So our goal isn't to eliminate stress. It's to have flexibility, to not be stuck in our stress. We want to have a level of stress that fits reality. Some things are hard and we ought to be stressed out, and that stress can provide an amount of energy to face that challenge. But we oftentimes get in a place where we're long away from whatever was stressful, and we still feel those feelings. We still have those emotions. We still feel overwhelmed by it, or maybe it never happened or never will happen, and we feel overwhelmed by it, right? We live in the past and the future. So I want to propose 3 different asceticisms by which we can manage stress in our lives. The first is an asceticism of time. We need to mortify our desire to get more done, and sometimes choose to slow down. That means walking instead of running, driving the speed limit. That means saying no when people ask us to do things, right? There's a humility in saying, I just can't do more. There's a real humility in that. And then also eliminating multitasking. Right? It's a humble recognition of our own limitedness. And so we need to have an asceticism with our time. The second is an asceticism with our awareness. This kind of follows on that idea of multitasking, realizing I have a limited capacity to pay attention and I have a limited capacity to focus. So I need to be responsible with that. That means choosing maybe to turn the TV off in the evening or to turn the podcast off that's going in my ears when I'm taking a walk, right? Limiting those inputs so that I can be present to what is. And then the final asceticism is an asceticism of the present moment. I mean, it's a willingness to be present to what is actually there. A willingness to be present to what's actually happening in my body. What am I actually feeling? Where is that sensation? A big part of this, one of the biggest tools, I think, is breathing. Breathing affects our nervous system significantly, and it's one of the things that our body controls automatically that we can also seize control of with our will. And this is really significant. So when you breathe in, you're actually kind of speeding up your system, and when you breathe out, you're slowing down your system. So you can choose to either accelerate or decelerate your kind of internal nervous system by either extending your out breaths or extending your in breaths. So if you need to get some energy going, you feel a little slow, I don't recommend hyperventilating, of course. You can extend your in breath and do a shorter out breath, or the opposite's true. If you need to calm down, just simply extending your exhales, and that will slow down your body. And this can be a great way to change that story in your head. Do some breathing the next time you're in traffic or the next time you feel overwhelmed, and the story in your head will follow the state of your body. So these are just a few short tips on how to manage stress.
Well, those are great because we're so good at inducing and compounding stress.
Yeah.
and finding ways to manage it is very helpful.
Andrew, what do you think of kind of the cognitive approach of, the way we perceive what's going on? If we start to change the way we perceive what's going on, affects then our body. Is it just one way, from physiology to thought, or can thought then also kind of circle back and affect physiology?
Yeah, you get into a loop. There's kind of an anxiety loop where I feel a certain way, and then I think a certain way, and then those thoughts end up causing me more physiological anxiety, and it loops around and around and around.
Right.
And I think one of the challenges with the cognitive approach is sometimes it's hard to stop those thoughts with your will. And oftentimes people just struggle, like, how do I stop thinking about this? And
right.
And I think it could be more effective to interrupt the loop by addressing what's happening in the body. Because it's biology, it's physiology. It reacts to the stimulus it's given, and we can control the stimulus that it receives.
Okay, so you're kind of breaking it at the stimulus level versus it starts to occur, what do I do? You're saying let's get it before it starts to occur?
Before it starts to occur, or a way to interrupt it once it's happening.
I love it.
Okay.